As a student of history and a lifelong fan of the Star Wars saga, I find myself continually fascinated by the complex journey of Anakin Skywalker. The narrative arc of this character is so intricately woven with themes of trust, loyalty, and the struggle against the dark side that it resonates deeply even today. And then I think the Star Wars prequel trilogy, it's well known that Anakin Skywalker made a faithful shift towards the dark side, culminating in his transformation into Darth Vader at the end of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. However, numerous characters played a role in this development. In fact, as early as Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Anakin was identified as the Chosen One, a designation that unintentionally increased his burden to excel as a Jedi. Although multiple factors led to Anakin Skywalker's descent into darkness, his ultimate decision was also influenced by others. A significant challenge for Jedi is maintaining emotional detachment in their choices, but Anakin Skywalker, as a Jedi Knight, found this particularly difficult. He held deep emotional bonds with the various individuals, chief among them his clandestine spouse, Senator Padme Amidala. The impulse to safeguard those he cherished, including Padme and his mother Shmi, frequently drove Anakin to teach actions that were questionable at best and downright detrimental at worst, pushing him increasingly towards the dark side. And for more than a decade, Palpatine carefully prepared Anakin to take on the role of his next Sith apprentice. He wasn't just able to perceive the ambiguity and darkness lurking within Anakin, but he deliberately exploited it to steer him towards the dark side. In his position as Supreme Chancellor, Palpatine formed a close bond with the young Jedi that led Anakin to trust and even regard him as a friend and guide. However, with Palpatine concealing his true identity as the enigmatic Sith Lord Darth Sidious, it was apparent that his ultimate aim was to exploit Anakin's power for his personal advantage. The climactic move in Palpatine's game of manipulating Anakin as his potential successor involved persuading the troubled Jedi that he could show him how to prevent Padme's demise during the Revenge of the Sith. Eventually, Palpatine admitted to being the Sith Lord the Jedi were pursuing, but diverted attention from this by offering to teach Anakin how to outplay death. Through his tutelage with Anakin, Palpatine subtly sowed seeds of mistrust towards the Jedi early on, making it simpler for him to convert Anakin once he unveiled himself as a Sith Lord. As a devoted Star Wars fan, I find myself reflecting on the master-apprentice relationship between Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. Following his apprenticeship under Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan took on the role of Anakin's mentor in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. At first glance, Obi-Wan appeared strict towards Anakin, often reprimanding him publicly and voicing his concerns to the Jedi Council about Anakin's readiness for a solo mission. However, beneath this stern exterior, Obi-Wan harbored deep affection for Anakin, viewing him more than just a student, as a brother. And during the second part of the Revenge of the Sith, Anakin began to suspect that Obi-Wan had deceived him, trying to turn Padme against him. Earlier in Star Wars, The Secret Clone Wars Season 4, Obi-Wan pretended to die in order to gather information on one of Count Dooku's schemes. Anakin wasn't informed about this secret, which made him suspicious and prone to violence due to his belief that his master had died. Eventually, when Obi-Wan reappeared alive and explained the need for secrecy, he had already sown seed of distrust in Anakin. And the Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn played a crucial role in liberating Anakin Skywalker from bondage and setting him on the journey of becoming the Jedi. Upon their encounter with Obi-Wan confirmation of his high midi-chlorian count, Qui-Gon believed Anakin to be the Chosen One. Despite not knowing Anakin's ultimate fate, he brought the young boy to the Jedi Temple and advocated for him to become Obi-Wan Kenobi's apprentice. Freeing Anakin from a life of slavery was a noble act,
but his joining the Jedi Order ultimately led to the downfall of the entire institution.
It's plausible that Anakin would not have become Obi-Wan's student if Qui-Gon Jinn hadn't died. In his final moments, Qui-Gon requested Obi-Wan to train Anakin, a duty Obi-Wan couldn't refuse his master. Had Qui-Gon survived and trained Anakin himself, it might have prevented Anakin from falling to the dark side. Although Obi-Wan was an excellent teacher, Qui-Gon would have been more suitable as Anakin's mentor, because he provided the fatherly figure that the boy lacked. However, this doesn't mean that Obi-Wan was a poor instructor. Rather, his presages, their clear Skywalker, and Anakin's personalities were quite distinct, and their bond as master and apprentice wasn't ideal for Skywalker. And having sent him in. So, it's crazy how medic Vic fams and movie moaning passed in maybe a time in a small and simply wrapped on the beach. Occasionally led him to act aggressively, as demonstrated in Star Wars The Clone Wars, with Resh Clovis, and the way Anakin grew increasingly domineering towards Padme, by allowing emotions to dictate his actions. Anakin was inching closer to the dark side, making himself more susceptible to Palpatine's influence. And moreover, in the film Revenge of the Sith, Padme's pregnancy caused anxiety because Anakin had a premonition that she would die during childbirth. And this foreboding prompted Anakin to seek aid from Palpatine, who claimed he could help save Padme and their unborn child. Although Anakin had already fallen to the dark side by the end of Revenge of the Sith, it was when Palpatine told Anakin that he had killed Padme that proved his undoing and marked a crucial turning point from which there was no return. In my perspective, as a movie reviewer, Ahsoka Tano, Anakin Skywalker's apprentice, wasn't exactly instrumental in her master's descent into darkness, but she was hardly a beacon of support during his turbulent times. Towards the end of the Clone Wars Season 5, Ahsoka found herself falsely accused of temple bombing and multiple murders. Although Anakin managed to unmask the true culprit, Barriss Offee, it was only a select few who got to hear her side of the story, a side that spoke volumes about her disenchantment with the Jedi Order. This disillusionment was a sentiment that would resonate more and more with Anakin as his own faith in the Order began to waver. When Ahsoka chose to depart from the Jedi Order, following her acquittal, it grieved Anakin deeply and made him believe that he had let her down as a mentor, and she as his pupil.
Later on, during their brief encounters in the Clone Wars, Season 7 leading up to the Siege of Mandalore, Ahsoka was typically terse with Anakin. Their conversations were mostly focused on strategy rather than personal matters. Ahsoka was familiar with her master's character and should have perceived the rising darkness within him. She refused to believe Maul's assertion that he was being manipulated by Darth Sidious.
As a leader of the Jedi Order, Yoda ought to have sensed the turmoil brewing within Anakin. Though he recognized Anakin's fear, hate, and anger, even as a young boy, Yoda neglected to delve deeper into the source of these feelings and assist Anakin in overcoming them. Instead, he merely advised Anakin to resist them without providing practical guidance on how to accomplish this. Anakin was instructed to suppress his emotions, which proved impossible for him. Given Yoda's vast knowledge, one would expect him to understand this better. Looking back, I can't help but reflect on the time when Master Yoda paired me, Anakin Skywalker, with Ahsoka Tano as my Padawan. I believed this would guide me in my Jedi journey and personal growth. However, it seemed to have the opposite effect. Instead of fostering detachment as a true Jedi should, I found myself growing increasingly attached to her. A significant reason behind Anakin Skywalker's descent into the dark side can be attributed to the Jedi Council, particularly its leadership under Yoda. Despite granting Anakin a place among them, the Council withheld the rank of Master, which deeply troubled him.
This dissatisfaction was shared with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Interestingly, Mace Windu expressed doubts about Anakin, despite his consistent demonstrations of skill and loyalty.
The Jedi Council's mistrust of Anakin sowed discord, leading to his eventual betrayal by Palpatine when he was tasked with spying on the Chancellor. They paid closer attention to the growing shadows within Anakin. Perhaps they could have thwarted the allure of the dark side and prevented his fall. Instead, their isolation of him sealed his fate as a Sith Lord. The Toydarian traitor, who once owned Anakin Skywalker and his mother Shmi, was the cause. The seed of Anakin's hatred towards slavery was sown by their mistreatment at the hands of Watto. When Qui-Gon Jinn attempted to liberate both Anakin and Shmi, he managed to save only the boy. If Watto hadn't held Shmi as a slave, she wouldn't have fallen victim to the Tusken Raiders, enduring their brutal torture and ultimately losing her life. Shmi Skywalker's tragic demise served as one of the first instances that Anakin truly witnessed the dark side, and it could have been prevented. And in Season 4 of the Clone Wars, Anakin's intense disdain for slavery was vividly portrayed when he, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka were taken captive by the Zygerian slave traders. For a moment, Anakin found himself back in chains as a slave, an experience that ignited a fury rarely seen on the show. This rage was a terrifying force that the Jedi found hard to control, demonstrating the deep roots of the dark side within Anakin. This anger and hatred could be traced back to Watto, who had owned both Anakin and his mother during Skywalker's upbringing. The vaults aren't smaller, and just likewise so advancing a static video of a cot of distance meeting peers, modern species. And I talked about in various that they may not have intended for it. Their actions and omissions helped fuel his slide towards darkness, ultimately leading to the downfall of the Star Wars Republic and the Jedi Order.